So this is White One Auto coming back at you again today for our Fix It Right the First Time moment. Today's Fix It Right the First Time was a tip about LS swaps. So if you are LS swapping a G-body, Cutlass, Monte Carlo, Regal, Grand Prix, I might have forgot some, from 1978 to 1988, I believe, or 87, whatever, a G-body. You're LS swapping a G-body. When you go to install your engine, I've seen, no matter what type of mount you use, these are not the mounts I would typically use, but this car was LS swapped by somebody else, and we're gonna fix it and correct a lot of issues. So when you go to install your engine, leave your passenger side valve cover off. Passenger side valve cover stays off. Have a friend with you so they can help guide the engine down, because it is really tight on this heater box if the heater box is still in the car. So if you left the heater box in the car, you want to have heat and air conditioning most likely. That will be hard to do if you have a gaping hole in it. So when you install the engine, have a friend there with you to help guide the engine down. You're gonna need to support the engine until you get your transmission and your transmission cross member in so it sits correctly and the right rear of the engine is not beating the crap out of your heater box. It will really beat the crap out of it if you have your coil packs on the valve covers. I find it best to just leave the valve cover off. So that is today's tip and fix it right moment. And I have a second one. This is the LS engine out of that car. It didn't really run great. The installation was horrible. But another thing I want to point out, you see this hole here? Let's go over to the other side. You see this hole here? Both of those holes was where the ground for the coil pack for each individual. So the driver's side head ground for the coil pack went here. Passenger side head ground for the coil pack went here. And remember, when you're putting it in, leave this valve cover off. This will beat the shit out of your heater box. I've tried shaving this thing down some too, but still, I think it works better to just leave the valve cover off, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Leave that valve cover off, and you can do it by yourself if you're using a lift plate. You definitely can. Just take your time. You could probably shave this off if you're not going to use it. And with some help, you could probably do it, but make it easier on yourself and leave the valve cover off. But back to what we're saying. So this hole and this hole is where your ground for your coil packs will most likely go. Even if they go in this hole or that hole, you need to make sure that this spot, or this spot, the threads are clean and there is no paint on here. You can see this engine was painted up. The ground for the coil was right there. There's a ton of paint there. On here, the same thing. The ground was there. There's a ton of paint. If you're gonna paint it, I would suggest just put your piece of masking tape on it when it's still bare metal and just cover the spot up. Nobody's really gonna see this because it's in the back, especially on this side, it's gonna be super tight. So nobody's really gonna see it if you're worried about the aesthetics. But more importantly than the aesthetics of how this bolt hole looks back here, you need to make sure that that has direct metal to metal contact with your ground for each coil. So it just needs to happen. I'm not gonna debate it, and it's over. So today's Fix It Right the First moment is, if you're LS swapping in a G-body and the heater box is still in the car, I recommend that you leave the valve cover off. When you mount your coil ground wire for this head and this head, the driver head and the passenger head, make sure that they both have direct metal to metal contact. So once again, we thank you for subscribing, liking, and commenting. That is all we got for today. White One Auto out.